Hello, thank you for coming. I'm not sure how many of you have had a chance to see the exhibition yet, but I thought I'd try and explain its premise and its thematic structure, because it's a departure for the Costume Institute to do an exhibition based around popular culture. When I began first working on the exhibition, which was about 5 years ago, my first impulse was to focus on clothing that quite literally transformed you into a superhero. So clothing that enabled you to run faster, swim faster, and even fly. But as I developed the exhibition, I became more interested in looking at the symbolic and metaphorical associations between fashion and superheroes. And on the surface, it might seem that fashion and superheroes have very little in common, but they actually share rather surprising similarities. Both are reflections of the zeitgeist, so mirrors to our social, political, and even social realities and anxieties. And at the core of both are issues of identity and transformation. Fashion and superheroes not only allow you to escape into your fantasies, but also to act out your fantasies. The idea of transforming yourself into anybody or anything. And in the world of comics and fashion, the body is everything. It can be enlarged or diminished. It can be melded with metal, merged with plant life, or morphed with animals. And it can be asexual, heterosexual, homosexual, and even hermaphroditic. The body is obsessively focused upon in both fashion and superheroes, and it's the body that provides the exhibition's organizing principle. And the show is divided into 8 bodily fantasies or narratives, and the first is the graphic body, as represented by Superman. Superman was the first character to embody the definition of the superhero, and his costume of cape, unitard, and overpants became the standard for all superheroes. It was inspired by the costumes worn by circus acrobats at the turn of the 20th century, and it combined the male fantasies of an idealized classical nudity with an affected, dandified theatricality. And Superman's costume is iconic, less because of its components and more because of its S emblem, which functions as a simplified statement of his identity. When designers reference Superman's costume, they tend to focus on its S emblem. And here, the German designer Bernhard Wilhelm has reworked the emblem to suggest the hurried handiwork of a graffitiist. And the defiled emblem was produced in collaboration with the artist Carsten Fock, who is well known for his graffiti-style artwork. Here, the Italian designer Franco Moschino has substituted the letter S for the letter M, which serves as a wry comment on the cultural currency of the branded body. Moschino's M serves the same function as Superman's S, which is really to promote brand recognition and identification. Signs and logos have come to define both comics and fashion, and they serve to ensure the body's passage into the field of the symbolic and representational. Every superhero carries a graphic symbol that expresses his or her character. Spider-Man, for instance, sports a webbed costume with a spider symbol on its front and back that serves to embody his code name. And so strongly is webbing associated with Spider-Man that even when designers employ it without any direct reference to the character, he can't help but be invoked. Here, the French designer Jean-Paul Gaultier uses mother-of-pearl buttons as well as a natural drape of silk chiffon to articulate a web pattern. And it's unlikely that Spider-Man's costume was a direct influence on Gautier, but by citing a symbol so closely associated with a superhero, Gautier extends the conceptual reach of his design and deploys the graphic body for its most resonant and evocative power. In the exhibition, Wonder Woman represents the patriotic body. She was created in 1942 primarily as a symbol of American utopianism and egalitarianism. And early stories focus on her fighting fascism. This comic book cover dates from January 1943 and shows Wonder Woman bowling with the heads of Hitler, Hirohito, and Mussolini. During World War II, most superheroes were co-opted for patriotic purposes, but Wonder Woman was unique in that she quite literally wore her flag-waving fervour on her sleeves. Mobilizing the patriotic emotions attendant on her creation, she wears a red, white, and blue costume that's basically a composite of the American flag. Wonder Woman was the point of departure for John Galliano's ensemble for Christian Dior, consisting of a red and white striped jacket and bustier with gold and white stars and a pair of scanty gold briefs. It captures not only the politicized overtones, but also the sexualized overtones of Wonder Woman's costume. Captain America was also created as a super patriotic superhero, and he made his debut in 1941, a year before Wonder Woman. And like Wonder Woman, his costume is a composite of the American flag. Captain America's nationalism was asserted in his debut cover, which showed him punching Hitler in the face. While several designers in the show have co-opted the stars and stripes as an embrace of patriotic fervour, some, like Bernard Wilhelm, has used the pattern as a critique of nationalism. These two outfits form part of a collection entitled I Am the One and Only Dominator, and they were intended as a direct critique of America's expansionist foreign policy. But it should be said that superheroes, and even super patriotic superheroes like Captain America, are not above criticizing the government. In the mid-1970s, Captain America's disgust over the Watergate scandal prompted him to reject his patriotic persona and become the identity-denying nomad in an explicit critique of the military and national zealotry that tainted Old Glory. In the exhibition, the Hulk embodies the virile body and represents the bodily fantasy of male potency. In his overstated super solidity, he incarnates adolescent fantasies of physical empowerment and personifies pubescent metamorphosis. With his thick neck, bulging tendons, and throbbing veins, he suggests the turgidity of male arousal. Phallic symbolism is implicit in the representation of most superheroes, their hard bodies swathed in prophylactic unitars, but it's explicit in the case of the Hulk. And the Hulk, as a metaphor for male potency, finds many resonances in fashion, and perhaps most graphically, Walter van Beendonck created a series of jackets with air pockets that inflated to establish an immediate and exaggerated musculature. Alexander McQueen has played with a similar concept of the pneumatic physique. In this ensemble, he has relied on football shoulder pads to convey an image of sexual power. And McQueen's She-Hulk is presented in a state of vascular distension, a paradox of masculine power in feminine form. John Galliano parodies the brute force of the Hulk in this extraordinary ensemble, with its padded shoulders, fetishistic hardware, and enormous hosepipe phallus. It both reflects and represents the pulsing force of the phallic body.